This is Leadership TV. See ahead, move ahead, stay ahead.
Welcome to the program. I'm excited that you have made time to join us for this leadership series. I'm very hopeful that it's truly going to help you. I'm going to start by looking at the 12 shifts leadership is not. It is a very weird topic and a weird way to start a leadership training, because in most cases, leadership trainings are started by looking at what is leadership. But I'm looking at what leadership is not. And then what even makes it very strange is the fact that I'm using the last 4 letters of leadership, which is shape, to try to let us look at various things that leadership is not. And that's why the title is The 12 Shifts Leadership is Not. I am hopeful, very hopeful, that using such terms will always help you to remember this training. So, what are the 12 things that leadership is not? Number 1, leadership is not headship, because true leadership is not position. You see, Joseph was never the head of Potiphar's house, but he was a true leader in Potiphar's house. He was never the head of the prison where he served his term, but he was still a leader in that prison. In fact, he was not the head of Egypt, yet he was the most influential leader after Pharaoh. So you see, leadership is not a position. Leadership is function. Many people assume that once you are given a position, you become a leader. At least positionally, you are a leader. But leadership is not a position. Leadership is a function. I've seen many organizational leaders, both in church and outside the church, make this mistake. They assume that once you give people positions, then they will lead. But see, people must start leading before they are given positions. There was never the position of a deputy king in Egypt. But when the leadership potential of Joseph was discovered, that in the midst of what doesn't look like a position, he was already functioning as a leader. A position was created for him to continue with his leadership duties. So that's how I think. People must show the promise of leadership before they are put in position. So the first one is that leadership is not headship. The second thing leadership is not is that leadership is not heirship, because leadership is not by inheritance. You cannot say that because your father is a leader, you can also step into his shoes. You must study his leadership abilities and study his leadership capabilities in order for you to be able to step into the person's shoes. And that's why we see that great leaders whose children assume that they will take after them usually become very disastrous in leadership when they are offered that position. Leadership is a skill you must learn. Leadership is a skill, is a potential you must discover and develop. It is not a position you must inherit. Number 3, leadership is not headship, because leadership is about people who have intellect, will, and emotions. You cannot lead people like you are driving cattle. You know, most leaders assume that they have all wisdom and everybody they are leading or following them are like animals. They don't respect the emotions of these people, the intellect of these people, the will of the people they follow. When you do that, I can assure you that your leadership will fail. Number 4, leadership is not ownership. Let's go back to Joseph. Joseph never owned Potiphar's house, but he was a great leader there. He never owned the prison where he was put in, but he was a great leader. He showed his leadership leader, serving yourself. People work in organizations and they feel that the only way they can realize their dreams is to leave the organization and set up a similar one. And I've seen many people do that, and they have destroyed their potentials and their chances and their prospects. Leadership is not showmanship, because true leaders don't go for the glory, they go for goals. True leaders set goals and they achieve those goals. They don't go for the glory. True leaders are not looking for front row seat to sit on. They don't show up when there is an appreciation and glory to be given. True leaders, actually, you don't even see them. They are part of the team. True leaders are not the people who want to be present at sword cutting ceremonies, etc., etc. Number 5, leadership is not judgeship, because true leaders are not fault finders. They don't sit in judgment of their subordinates or other leaders. True leaders are never fault finders. Number 7, leadership is not spectatorship. Leadership is not spectatorship, because true leaders are always on the field of play. You don't fold your arms and wait for people to do things and show up later. True leaders are part of the work. They do the work with their subordinates. Number 8, leadership is not lordship, because true leaders are not teen gods. You want to be worshipped because you're a leader? You know, I don't blame most leaders, because the first person you learned leadership from was your father. And your father was like a teen god in the house, the typical African father who dictated and gave instructions, and virtually everybody worshipped him at home. The next person you learned leadership from was your teacher, who made the decisions and nobody questioned them. So leaders become more or less like people you have to worship. But true leaders are not lords. 9, leadership is not dictatorship, because true leaders are democrats. They seek opinions. They invite decisions from other people. When you disagree with them, they look at the point where you are coming from and try to meet you halfway. Dictators cannot stand people having different opinions than theirs. If you are a leader and you can't stand opposing opinions, then you have a problem, and it will go back to hurt you in one way or the other. Open up and listen to other people's opinions. Number 10, leadership is not saintship, because true leaders accept their faults. To assume that because you're a leader, you don't make mistakes is the worst form of assumption. It can destroy your leadership. You see, the path cutter does not know the many bends in the path. It will take people to tell him or her. And that is why leaders must open the doors for people to be able to point their faults to them. I'm not talking about destructive critics. I'm talking about constructive critics. But whether it's destructive or constructive, let every critic become your quality assurance manager. Because they are there, it will help you perform better. Number 11, leadership is not rulership, because true leaders are not kings. They don't lead by decrees. You just don't make decisions and force everybody to follow. You want to listen to other people. Don't make yourself a ruler. Make yourself a real leader. Finally, leadership is not lectureship, because true leaders know they are not all-knowing. To assume that you are all-knowing and that when you make decisions and you don't see the opinions of other people, you don't see the intelligence of other people or the knowledge of other people. True leaders know that other people are more knowledgeable than them, even though they don't have the position they have. Pharaoh at the time of Joseph knew this, and that was why he called for Joseph to help interpret his dreams for him. You may have the dream, but others may be the interpreters. Don't make yourself an all-knowing leader, because once you stop learning, that is the end of your leadership. Thank you so much for joining me on this program. I hope it's been a blessing to you. I'll see you again for this series. So get ready, tell your friends about it, let them watch this video. The mission of the Titi Affairs Center is to provide all manner of leadership learning opportunities to all manner of leaders in all manner of ways, mostly at no cost to these leaders who study at the Titi Affairs Center. To be able to finance the Titi Affairs Center and make sure that our projects are sustainable, I want to invite you to buy the Titi Affairs books on Amazon. Any book you buy is donated to the Titi Affairs Center for the development and the training of the next generation of godly servant leaders. The City Affairs Center every year hosts the African Young Leaders Fellowship Program, where we attract young leaders from across Africa free of charge for a 10-day leadership development program. We also host MELT, the Management, Entrepreneurship and Leadership Training Program. And this attracts also young men and women who spend weekends with us here at no cost to them at all. The City Affairs Center also hosts some of the biggest young pastors leadership conference. Is called IPLAS, the International Pastors and Leaders Under 40 Summit, where we house over 3,000 young pastoral leaders at no cost to them at all in our facilities. And we want you to support us to keep doing these things. Recently, we signed an MOU with the biggest student organization in Ghana, NUGS, the National Union of Ghana Students, to provide free leadership training to student leaders across the country. This is worth supporting. And above all, the City Affairs Center is also a mission center where this training offers us the opportunity to serve Jesus with our participants. Why don't you support the City Affairs Center by buying a City Affairs book, by creating a City Affairs library right now? Do it now, and the Lord will bless you.
This is Leadership TV. See ahead, move ahead, stay ahead.